Many of you know I am the oldest of 5 kids. I have 2 younger sisters and 2 little brothers. All of us have strong personalities, and each of us mildly competitive in our own unique ways. So I feel like maybe in some small way I can relate to this story of Cain and Abel. As a kid growing up, my parents had a very small 3-bedroom house in which there was only 1 bathroom. So there were certainly days when things got a little ugly. But here's the thing about my family. We're one of those families where I can say a mean thing about my sister or be a little ornery to my brother, but I will take you out. I will take you out if you call my sister a you-know-what. Or if you are in some way unkind to my baby brother, I will take you out. So I get frustration and jealousy and sibling rivalry. But this Cain and Abel story is trouble all the way around. It's full of questions. It's full of anger and jealousy and fear and murder. And most of us probably could agree that we get enough of that out of the LA Times and we don't need to come to church to hear it anymore. And so because of all this stuff, we totally write this story off altogether. Because we can't quite understand it, we just ignore it. But I don't want us to get so caught up in the facts of the story that we miss its truth. And I think this story is trying to make sense of the fundamental truth that sometimes bad things happen for no good reason. And sometimes life just isn't fair. Now, I don't think God is this all-controlling puppeteer in the clouds, choosing me to get the green light or the best parking space at Vaughn's. God doesn't choose someone in one car accident to survive while someone else dies. And God doesn't choose to help the Indianapolis Colts have a miracle second half comeback against my beloved Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. And I've realized this week that I've missed a really important part of this Cain and Abel story, and it's in verse 7 that Deanna read. The translation that she read says it this way: "Why are you angry?" This is God speaking to Cain. "Why are you angry? If you do well, will you not be accepted? If you do not do well, sin is lurking at the door. Its desire is for you, but you must master it." There's another translation that I really like to use, and it says it this way, and it says it just a little, it changes the meaning just a little bit. It says, "For whether you offer well or whether you do not, at the tent flap, sin is crouching, and for you is its longing, but you will rule over it." Okay, now I realize that I'm geeking out over a Hebrew translation here. I get that. But God isn't saying that life is fair or life isn't fair. God isn't explaining why God chose Abel's offering over Cain's offering. God says to Cain, there is only one thing that you have control over in life, and that is how you respond to life. That's it. When good things happen, when bad things happen, when things we don't understand happen, we can choose. will you respond? I remember being in Geneva, Switzerland at the World Council of Churches, in their chapel, standing in front of their communion table. And they have this really unusual looking cross. Now, I've been in a lot of chapels with a lot of unusual looking crosses, but the story of this particular cross has always really been powerful for me. After the Second World War, there were two villages. One had been bombed by the Nazis, one had been bombed by the Allies, and they went throughout their towns and they collected all the little fragments, the leftover pieces of the bombs that had been dropped on their cities. And together these two communities came and used these bomb fragments to create this cross. And they gave it as a gift to the churches of the world. And their gift was to remind people that once upon a time the cross was used as a symbol of hatred and fear and torture. And that we as Christians have transformed that. And now we see the cross as a symbol of love and hope and peace and grace. And I think we can do that with this story as well. This awful story of hatred and fear and death can be a powerful reminder to us that in each and every situation, we have the opportunity to choose. Will we choose the ways of love? Or will we turn our backs on the ways of love? Because that's what I think sin is, when we turn our back on the way of love. Now, it's easy for us to discount this story because we all say, I'm not a bad person. I wouldn't murder my brother. One of my sisters, maybe, but definitely not one of my brothers. I'm not a bad person. I wouldn't murder my brother. But I wonder, don't we murder our brothers and sisters even just a little bit every day when we make choices where we don't lead with love? It's the decisions we have to make every day, the little ones that are so important, the little ones that mean the most. In big things, when we have big decisions we have to make, we tend to stop and we take some time and we talk to our spouse or our best friend. We might even pray about it because we don't want to do something stupid, right? And make the wrong decision. But most days, and with most decisions, we have to respond right then, in the moment, and we have to choose. You know, there have been several stories. Julianne and I did not coordinate the part about the Olympics, but there have been several stories in this last week from the Olympics that demonstrate how some of the athletes and coaches have found themselves in bad situations and transformed them into gold medal moments because they chose to lead with love. And I heard about this story of this Californian, actually, who is the Canadian cross-country skiing coach. His name is Justin Wadsworth. And this week he led with love. And he didn't really need to. One of the top Russian competitors in one of the cross-country skiing races, I don't remember which one. One of the top Russian competitors had had a really bad day. He'd crashed going down one of the mountains. He'd broken a ski, and he's almost to the finish line. I mean, this guy had kept going, and he was trying, and he's within a couple, you can see the finish line, when his ski broke again, and he couldn't go on. And this Canadian coach, Justin Wadsworth, takes one of his own guy's skis and goes out there and puts it on this Russian competitor's foot so he can finish the race. I mean, the race was over. The winners had finished like 3 minutes ago. But later, when he was asked about this, Wadworth said, "I wanted him to have some dignity as he crossed that finish line in front of his fans." That's leading with love. And I also heard another good story this week about Shirley Temple, and I didn't know this about Shirley Temple. In 1972, Shirley Temple held a press conference in her hospital room. Immediately after she had had a mastectomy, to talk about the issue of breast cancer. Now, this was before Race for the Cure or pink, what are they? Ribbons, thank you. I'm drawing it, it's charades, right? I'm drawing it, pink ribbons. It's before a girlfriend gave me a t-shirt that said "Save Second Base." It took some of you a little while to get that, didn't it? If you didn't get it, I'll explain it to you at the back door as you go out. She was trying to transform her own bad situation into one of love, or an everyday moment. It's a husband. It's a husband whose wife is a stay-at-home mom with 4 little kids. And the weather in Kansas City has not been in double digits in weeks, and there is a foot of snow on the ground, and they had 5 days out of school, and they were praying that they didn't have another one, and he knew that if he didn't get that little girl the heck out of Kansas City, she was going to blow her mind. And so he uses his points, his airline miles, and puts her on a plane to sunny Los Angeles, where she can get 9 straight hours of sleep with no one interrupting her. That's Ryan's brother and my sister's down here on the front row. That's leading with love, friends. It's the little things. When we have the opportunity to lead with love, when we have had a really bad day at the office, and before we walk into that house, will we leave all the stress and anxiety outside, or will we take it in the house and take it out on our spouse or our kids or the dog? We can choose to lead with love. And sometimes we don't. We're human. We don't lead with love. We choose sometimes not to. Sometimes we don't choose not to, and we still don't lead with love. Football story. A few weeks back, there was this big kerfluffle about Seattle Seahawks cornerback Richard Sherman. He deflected a pass in the end zone at the very last second that won Seattle the game. And within a few moments, there was a television camera in his face. And even though Richard Sherman had saved the game, he lost that day in a very big way. He got caught up in the moment, and he said something stupid, and he got destroyed in the media for it. And people spent a week saying what a thug and what a bad guy Richard Sherman was. But you know what? Richard Sherman is not a bad guy. He survived growing up in a gang-infested neighborhood and got good enough grades that he got into Stanford. I know that's hard for some of you USC people, but he got into Stanford. And he graduated with his degree. And the reality of that is, we have all probably been Richard Sherman. He's a smart guy who lost his cool, Or as I say to my kids, his brains just fell out of his head. I've done it. You've probably done it too. Gotten caught up in a conversation and you said something you regret and you feel horrible about it later. You just didn't do it in front of a television camera. And you can apologize all you want, but you still feel that pit in your stomach. Because you try to lead with love on most occasions, but in that one moment, your brains fell out of your head. And that doesn't make you a bad person. But it does make me wonder, how do we limit those times? How do we make sure more often than not that we lead with love? Because it's hard sometimes. At least it is for me. There's this little novel that I really like. It's called Breakfast with Buddha. It's a fun little book described by Amazon as a road trip between a confirmed skeptic and an enigmatic holy man. And at breakfast one morning, the holy man explains the meaning of life. And he takes a glass of water and he sets it in the center of the table. And out of his pocket, he takes a handful of dirt and he dumps it in the water glass. He takes his spoon and he stirs up the water. And then he sits and he waits. And all the dirt settles to the bottom of the glass until he can once again see clearly through the glass of water. And then the holy man explains that the glass of water is us. And there are lots of things in life that make us not see clearly, lots of things that make our mind whirl and spin and cloud our vision with dirt. That so many of us keep ourselves so busy and with so much noise that we can't give ourselves the chance to let the dirt settle and the stirring stop. When we can allow ourselves to be still and to reconnect with that place deep inside us where the image of God still lives, where the spinning stops and the dirt settles. And we can begin to see things clearly. At one point, the guru says to his friend, "Love is what makes the water in the glass clean." And I love that analogy. Because, friends, life is dirty and messy, and all the stuff that we deal with and carry around in our heads and distract ourselves with can so often cloud how we see the world. And if we can't see clearly, then we can't make good choices. But when we are connected to love, the water in the glass will be clean. And that's the choice we have to make each and every day, in every situation. The bad ones when we feel like life isn't fair and we just want to punch somebody in the face. And the ones where we win and we inadvertently punch somebody in the face, we have the choice to let our brains fall out of our head and kill our brother with uncareful words that hurt, with reactions that we'll regret later. Or we can stop all the stirring of the dirt in our lives to connect so strongly with that love that we carry it into every situation. And that's my prayer for us this week, that with every situation, we realize its importance and we stay centered on the choice we have to make. When bad stuff happens, when life is unfair, when life is cloudy and dirty. My prayer is that we let love make the water clean. Amen.